as Murray is aware, I got a speeding ticket recently. I was one of these moments. It was during the lockdown. I was just in Beverly Hills, first guy at the light. I went through, wasn't paying attention. It turned out because it was during the school zone hours that I just was absent-mindedly going along. I was hit for 48 in a 40 because I saw the camera too late, and there was just nobody in front of me to slow me down as there would normally be. Um, it's annoying. It's annoying. It's not a big deal, but it's annoying. And what's going on here with this process is fairly simple, right? The government says, all right, well, we're going to punish you so that you will be a bit more vigilant, so that you'll pay more attention, because I was just zoned in on where I was going. And now I notice last week in the few places that I would go, yeah, my mind is on high alert for school zones, because that seems to be my problem with speed cameras is school zones when I'm in front. That's the majority of my speeding things. So mine's on high alert. It's been changed, right? In church terms, we call this vastation. It's a punishment to try to weed out the negative in you. So it's a vastation for the lead foot. It's a vastation for paying attention. It's saying, okay, you weren't doing that right. You got to try a little harder. Okay, there's no debate. I knew I saw the camera. I saw, so it's not like it's lying to me. I admit that. It's not, the system's rigged. Fair enough. It's okay. You've got to do a better job paying closer attention to it. This idea of using punishment of one form or another to vastate, to remove a undesirable activity is not new, right? We've been doing this for a long time. And what we really want is not that. We want a consequence-free life, right? I'd like to be able to say to somebody, "Oh, look, come on, man. I know I got caught and I messed up, but come on, you don't need to give me this punishment, do you? Because if you look at my driving record, over the 10 years that I've been here, I'm pretty clean. Yeah, you got once every here and there, but overall, I've done, for myself, I feel like I've done a pretty good job of not running into violations, and I've been pretty clean. So can you let this one slide? So we want consequence-free life. But then what happens, right? The vigilance isn't quite so strong if you feel like you can just roll on and get away with it. The vigilance in this case was no big deal because, well, it was lockdown. There wasn't anybody going into school, and there wasn't anything there to run into. But school zones need to be slower. I get that. We all have these moments, right, where we say, okay, I did something wrong. I'd like to not be punished for it. School teachers deal with this all the time, right? They'd like to give all their students a perfect grade. Yeah, buddy, you can have an A. You can all have A's. Does it help the student to give them all A's? No, not really, because they need to learn the skills so that when they go out on the job, they actually do the job properly. They don't, messing with your GPA is not a big deal. Getting fired from your job is a big deal because you didn't have the right skills, because you didn't learn them. So this leads us back to the children of Israel, because the Lord put in a system of consequences for them too. There's an economic penalty, as with speeding or even with failing in school. There's a penalty for when they went wrong. And you'll see it in your order of service. It's a fairly short reading from the book of Numbers, chapter 15. It's about 9 verses here. Let's take a look at this. It says, if you sin unintentionally, that's a big word there, unintentionally, that's important. If you sin unintentionally and do not observe all these commandments which the Lord has spoken to Moses, all that the Lord has commanded you by the hand of Moses, from the day the Lord gave the commandment and onward throughout your generations. Then it will be, if it is unintentionally committed, without the knowledge of the congregation, that the whole congregation shall offer one young bull as a burnt offering, and as a sweet aroma to the Lord, with its grain offering and its drink offering, according to the ordinance, and one kid of the goats as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for the whole congregation of the children of Israel, and it shall be forgiven them, for it was unintentional. They bring their offering, and the offering made by fire to the Lord, and their sin offering before the Lord for their unintended sin. It shall be forgiven the whole congregation of the children of Israel and the stranger who dwells among them, because all the people who did it unintentionally. And if a person sins unintentionally, as opposed with the whole group, then he shall bring a female goat as in its first year as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for the person who sins unintentionally, when he sins unintentionally before the Lord, to make atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven him. You shall have one law for him who sins unintentionally, for him who is native born among the children of Israel, and for the stranger who dwells among you. But the person who does anything presumptuously, whether he is native born or stranger, that one brings reproach on the Lord, and he shall be cut off from among his people. Because he has despised the word of the Lord and broken his commandment, that person shall be completely cut off, and his guilt shall be upon him. Big difference between unintentional and intentional sin, eh? Big difference there. And you see there's basically two categories, unintentional for a group of people, unintentional for an individual, and then there's the intentional, and that's bad, right? I'm focusing here today on the unintentional side of things because you have some interesting symbolism there. And, in my mind, a speeding ticket, well, that was unintentional. I wasn't doing it on purpose. It was just absent-minded. But it applies, the unintentionality applies to us spiritually as well. When you unintentionally do something wrong, there's a penalty. Doesn't seem totally fair at times, but that's the reality. And why is it? Well, it's about this process of vastation. So the basic symbolism here you have is you have this bull, young bull that's being offered. You have goats, he goats or she goats. So bulls symbolically are goods of the natural life. All right, so it's things you do to be nice to your neighbors, right? You pick up a paper, or you go home and you see they left their lights on their car. You ring up your neighbor, hey, buddy, you left your lights on your car, turn them off, that kind of stuff. The goats are about the truths and the affections for them. So a he goat being the truth that needs to be sacrificed, or the she goat the affection for that truth that needs to be sacrificed. What is sacrifice then? Why are we sacrificing things? Why are we getting rid of things? Because in my mind, I'm the ancient Jewish guy, done something wrong, and all of a sudden somebody says to me, buddy, it's going to cost you a goat. It's going to cost you a goat and a bull, right? Some combination of that. And because these things go with other, guilt offerings and wave offerings, it's not just the goat you're going to lose. It's going to be other stuff too. And you just go, oh man, that's expensive, right? That's fine. That's okay. All right. So in my mind, where this goes is that there's an a spiritual economic cost to doing the wrong thing, even when it's unintentional. Oh, I was a jerk. I spoke meanly. I wasn't kind. I wasn't forgiving. I wasn't all the things. And you go, oh, there's a cost to that. What's that cost? So goats and bulls, they can have good meanings or bad meanings. So the challenge is here, okay, well, what is this? Is this picture showing us that you've got, a bad goat and you're burning it up so you're getting rid of it? Or is this a good goat and you're putting it on fire? Well, how is this a good thing, right? Well, what the writings tell us is that sacrificing things is about purification. And the idea is that the fire is love. Okay, so you're taking something, in this case, what actually comes out to be is a good, so it's a positive natural affection for truth, or a positive truth. There's something solid. You're putting it on the altar. You're flooding it with love. And the idea is you're purifying it in the same way you purify gold by putting it to heat. You're separating, you're putting it under pressure and causing the two to separate, and therefore you can filter out the impurities in the gold. So this picture here is purification through using something good and putting it under pressure, putting it through the crucifix of love, and next thing you know, you've got something better out of it. It's a vastation process. Vastation isn't pleasant, much like being put onto a fire. It's not any fun. This story sits in the context, all right? So you see Numbers 15, and nobody knows what Numbers 15 is. You know, what's Numbers 14, right? Nobody knows, because we don't do those stories enough to get the chapter and verse on it. But the interesting thing is, you actually know the story for Numbers 14. It's a story. It's a story where the children of Israel the Lord had told them to go into the Holy Land, right? So the spies in the land, spies came back and said, oh, we can't go in, it's too scary. And then what happens is Moses drops on them, well, you guys are going to have the punishment, right? You guys are going to be in the desert for 40 years till all these people die off because you didn't trust the Lord. You didn't have the faith in the Lord. You didn't believe. They go, oh, no. We believe. Don't let us be out here for 40 years. We believe. We're going to go in and do it. And so a bunch of them do go in. Moses says, you're going to lose. Amalekites are going to kick you back out. And the Amalekites kick them back out. And they come back and they're upset. And like, oh, no. Oh, no. And what the writings tell us about that story was a couple main things. The children of Israel at this point in their journey, they're very naturally minded. Right? Like the guy in the story read for the first talk, right? You know, a guy who's thinking about the world and the pleasures of the world, and he's like, these guys, that's what they want. They want those things. They're internally not right. So what this process is that we're seeing with the punishment in the desert for not going in, and this punishment of the goats are basically the same thing. It's this process of vastation to get the internal and the external on the same page. Lord's telling these people, you're not there yet. You're not ready to be in the Holy Land yet, because guess what? Inside, you don't have faith. You don't have peace. You don't have trust. You don't have all these things. What needs to happen is purification. So we're going to sit here in this desert until all of these things are cleaned up. Feels like my dad as a little kid. We're going to stay right here in this car until all you kids behave. We're not going anywhere. You guys are going to sit right here in this desert until you get it right. And yes, it's not going to be fun. Your goats are going to die. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to feel like you have anything to eat. There's not going to be plentiful of anything, because you got to get this right. You got to get this heart right. You got to be vastated. You've got to remove all this other stuff that you've been dealing with. It's hard. But notice what's happening. If you think about this whole chain of stories, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, that whole series, and you guys have been around the Word long enough, you know the basic gist of it. What is the Lord doing? Is he telling them to be good? No. He's telling them to stop being evil. Right? Stop it. That's the fundamental command. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. And if you do this, don't do that. It's mostly about stop it. Don't covet thy neighbor's donkey. Don't covet thy neighbor's house. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Keep the Sabbath, which is, you know, don't ruin the Sabbath, right? It's all about trying to get them to do the right thing by making them stop doing the evil. When we do the evil, there's a consequence, right? There's real consequences. And it's interesting, right? We say that the Lord is light, right? The Lord is heat and light. If you look out in nature, you can see the consequence of living without heat and light, right? Troglobites, they live in a world where the eyes are useless. Color doesn't matter. They've adapted themselves to living in the dark. They can't survive anywhere else any more than that demon we were reading about earlier can survive in heaven. In a world of black, what good are your eyes? Do you need to see? No. Most troglobites are blind. They're these cave fish. They have no color in their no pigmentation in their skin or scales. Completely transparent. Why? Because it doesn't matter. You don't need it. You don't need it. Predators can't see you with their eyes. There's plenty of examples in nature of stuff like this where when we live without heat and light, we change. We adapt to that. The Lord's saying, look, I'm gonna give you some consequence to your action now, so that doesn't happen to you, so that you'll be a little bit more alert, so you'll be a little bit more prepared. Because doing the wrong thing has its cost. Businesses know this, right? What percentage of unhappy customers come back? The statistics are around 9%, right? If you try to remedy somebody's complaints, that number reverses. About 90% will stay with you. Businesses know how expensive it is to attract a new person. So they do whatever they can. Smart businesses do whatever they can to keep someone there because it's 5 times more expensive to get someone than to lose it. So you say, all right, I'll give you something to stay, and they'll keep on staying. It's expensive to do the wrong thing. It really is. So when we get to a story like this where we see an economic price for doing the wrong thing, to me, I think that's useful. As a kid growing up in Bernathen, we had these images of, the little kid who does wrong, his garments go dirty and they get torn, and then the little kid who does well, they're shiny. And you can translate that into other things. Oh, well, when you do right, your house gets golden bricks. When you do bad, they all fall apart. There are these kind of images that, for some people, have recounted in near-death type experiences, showing that there is a price. And the scary thing is, you don't have to pay that price, but we somehow choose to do it anyway. Why? Because this world is a school. And just in the way as the teacher can give you a failing grade on an assignment, and it doesn't really matter about your job, the question is, did you learn the lesson? Right? The failing grade here doesn't matter. It kind of actually is consequence-free in this life to mess things up. But if you practice poorly, if you keep on practicing poorly here, you're going to practice poorly there. I'm going to leave you with this spiritual experience readings from 386. I think it's a good thing to close with because it shows you what happens when we take who we are and it's not good in the next life. It says, they who had loved a promiscuous life, secretly practicing loose sexuality, likewise seemed to themselves to dwell in underground places, like little rooms furnished with candles, and in fact, women resembling those who were the objects of their lewd promiscuity in secret. For fantasies take over when they depart from this life and are turned into scenes of this kind. They too are plagued in a manner suited to the degree and motive of their promiscuities, as if by mice, and by the type of foul insects that the intentions of their lewdness had inwardly been. Even if they do not know that their intentions had been of this nature, yet these are now revealed to them in the form of foul insects and such like, until they abstain from them. For souls are at first led by means of fantasies, from which they are gradually turned. Thus, instead of sensual pleasure, they are allotted dreadful fantasies, and which then take hold on them until they so detest the sensual pleasures that they want nothing more of them, and therefore finally turn away from them, even abhor them. So the fantasies are according to one's motives or hidden loves. Like the children of Israel, this was for about unintentional things, right? He didn't realize quite what he was doing. These stories are there to remind us that even when you don't do the right thing accidentally, there's a cost. Seek the truth, right? Seek the truth. That's what's going to save you, because nobody wants to go through this vastation process. Nobody wants to be stuck in a room with mice and insects. Nobody wants to lose their goats or their bulls. Nobody wants to pay fines. We don't. So it behooves us now to seek the truth, because it's easier to change now than to change then. That's the fundamental thing to take away. It's easy to change now. Put the effort in now so you don't get stuck in situations like these later on down the line.